360, 308 South 2nd Street in historic downtown Laramie. Perkins Restaurant and Bakery, home of the Trail of Treats. Every Halloween, that's right, they celebrate 9 years with the Talk Shop, 93.5 FM in the University Plaza. That event for youngsters, family too. All year long, we enjoy building what we do through events and celebrations around Laramie, Wyoming. This is the Talk Shop in Studio 255. Guest this morning, Joseph Kibler. Joseph Kibler is gubernatorial candidate for Wyoming in the 2026. That's this year. And the election cycle filing comes May 15th, 2026, runs through the end of May. And then August 18th, your first primary election. And then I believe November 5th, something like that, maybe November 8th.
I think it's the third, actually.
Third?
If I remember right. I could be, you know what?
Third.
We might be mixed up on our dates right now.
That's a ways out. That's a ways out. I'm thinking general election will come in due time, but we gotta stretch before that.
Yeah.
You've been through a stretch just this far. You're 1 year, you passed 1 year.
Yeah.
Announced I believe from my material, you were the first to announce for the 2026 election campaign, closely followed, if not the same week, by Brent Bien.
Yeah.
And then several candidates have announced their interest since then.
Yep.
You led the pack. Tell us why.
Yeah, I knew that stepping into the political arena, I was going to need to start early, just to get name recognition and to see people out there. Brent did quietly announce that he was probably going to run in November prior to my announcement. And then, of course, kind of ramped up late last summer, early fall.
And he, of course, ran in the prior.
Yeah,
cycle.
he did. He did. I can't believe it's been a year. And boy, what a year it's been,
Joseph, for those that might just be joining us, Joseph Kibler, tell us, who is Joseph Kibler? Who are you? Principled conservative?
Yeah, a lot has changed since a year ago. I went into this sort of with a blank slate, if you will. Sort of with this idea that I would let purpose and the campaign sort of just guide where we were going to go with things. And I knew I was running for governor. I had a vision and a purpose in that, but I sort of wanted to allow the process to kind of guide where I was going to be. I'm a father, 3 great kids, 3 homeschool kids. I'm a business owner. I was a public servant for many years, about 20 years. I was a firefighter. Been a COO for multiple companies, CEO, living just north of Cheyenne, and really kind of stepping into this race, understanding that we really need leaders who are willing to be something different. We talk an awful lot about doing things differently in politics. I feel like every election cycle for the last decade or more has been this, we're going to do it different this time. We're going to clean this up. We're going to make government smaller. And yet we keep getting more of the same, but just in a different way. Right? We say we want small government, unless it's government we want. We say we don't like welfare, well, unless it's welfare we want. And this goes down the line with we say we respect property rights, unless it's property rights we don't want to respect. And you just kind of go down the line of the issues that matter to the people in Wyoming. And it's like, wait a minute. I just kind of have like this roller coaster, effect. Like it's just this neck jerking sort of whiplash from politics. I think actually everybody watching or listening today, if I asked you, do you have political whiplash right now? They probably would say, yeah, like I totally have political whiplash. And that kind of leads into that big decision that we made in November, which was we're not in the parties. Well, I'm not going to stay in the party. I'm just
a year ago, you announced and campaigned on Faith, Family, Freedom, Future.
Yeah.
For Wyoming governor 2026. A year later, in that 12 months, you made a change. You left you announced leaving the Republican Party.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the reasons for that, and I'll try to delve into that a little bit. So there was just a lot of what I saw. So faith, family, freedom in the future. What I saw in faith in politics is a lot of times faith was being used just as a mechanism to get elected. But how did that look like behind closed doors? How did that look like when how you treated your fellow man? Are you loving and being kind towards your fellow men, even the people that don't agree with you? Right? Like you and I might not see eye to eye on everything, but is my faith living out and going, we can be friends, we can still be kind to each other, we can still respect each other. I walked into this ship, especially over like the late spring and over the summer last year, and I'm watching all of these segments or little echo chambers, and they're just burning the ship, right? They're burning the ship. They're all standing on the same deck and they're burning the ship. And I kind of brought this to the attention of some of the people in some of these echo chambers. I'm like, guys, you gotta keep burning, you gotta stop burning the ship. If you guys want to get things done for the people of Wyoming, you've got to learn how you and I can get together and agree on 70%, and let's figure out how to work on it. Right? Let's figure out how to get it done. And and these folks are determined to burn the ship. And I'm just like, you know what? In order for us, if we want to affect change in our government and in our politics, we got to change the conversation. We got to start having a different conversation. And so a couple of things. So this idea of like we don't like bureaucracy unless it's bureaucracy we want. We don't like welfare unless it's welfare we want. You know, the backdoor way of sort of dealing with the life issue in this state instead of just bringing it to the voters, and just subsidizing of everything and all of this stuff. It's like principles are optional, right? And for me, I want my principles to be consistent. I don't want the echo chamber or the party. I want to serve the people. And there's sort of this demand that you sort of have a choice. You're going to serve the party and what we want, and you're going to toe the whole line. You're going to toe everything. Or you're a traitor and a Democrat, or you're not conservative if you don't toe the whole line.
So
You don't
where do
serve the
you
party.
Republicans, Democrats alike,
Yeah.
in the two-party system as it exists in Wyoming, they each have platforms.
Yes.
Where do you stand with respect to like and difference according to the platform? Speak first, perhaps, to the Republican
Sure.
platform that
Sure.
you departed from.
Yeah, so keep in mind, I don't know if you saw the recent Gallup poll, but I'm joining 45% plus of Americans right now that have left the two parties, right? Largely Americans they're jumping ship. And we'll get into this a little bit later, Eric. We're going to talk about election changes that are potentially coming. The parties know they're in trouble, and so they're working really hard to shore up their control because people they can't control like me are a threat to them. So let's talk about where do I fall in line, let's say, with the Republican Party. Let's go with that. I'm a conservative, right? So on the face of the Republican Party, I'm going to agree with most of those platforms. The question is do they execute on that? Are they executing on those principles? Or are we just sort of moving pieces around? One thing that comes to mind is we're sort of changing the definition of things in order for us to approach politics from sort of this populist approach to things. We're sort of changing the definition of socialism and we're calling it capitalism so that we can help people. Maybe that's well intentioned, but it still ends up being socialism. If we're moving money from one person or from one thing to another or giving it to people, we're changing the meaning of these words in our party so that we can form a narrative that we're doing something that the constituents want. And I think that's dishonest. I think we have to be honest with ourselves about what we're doing and how we're doing it. So you're going to find that from a bird's eye view, I'm going to align with a lot of the party planks, I guess, if you will, the Republicans' party planks here in here in Wyoming.
What will you find? What will a Wyoming Democrat find friendly with Joseph Kibler?
So, believe it or not, I've had quite a few people from the left reach out to me, both call me, email, talk to me. And one of the things that they've said to me, so I'll tell you what they've told me, is Joseph, I don't really agree with you on a lot of the issues, But the fact that you care about humanity, that you have, by the way, compassion, empathy is not weakness. It's not weak. It's not weak for me to be kind to my enemy or to love my neighbor, truly love my neighbor. That's not weakness. And by the way, there are those on the right that see compassion or human empathy as weakness. So I think people on the left do appreciate that. I'll sit down and listen to anybody. This is an interesting story, and I think I told this story, maybe on one of our interviews. I went out to one of the No Kings protests because I wanted to listen. I wanted to learn. I wasn't going out there to make my political points or to campaign. I really just wanted to listen and learn from those people. Why are you really out here? What is it that's forming your worldview? And I spent a whole day really out there with those protesters to learn. And of course, there are those that are probably watching or listening. You couldn't learn anything from those people. Well, I wanted to learn where they were coming from. After I did that, I got just ridiculed by Republicans, especially Republicans in the state, like in the legislature. I had multiple of them come to me personally and say, I can't believe you did that. Why would you waste your time doing that? So I think while, the people on the left aren't going to agree with me on life, life begins at conception for me. They're not going to agree with me perhaps on my approach to government because I want to unwind bureaucracy. I want less government. But they appreciate the fact that, hey, at least I'll sit down and I'm not going to throw them out to the dogs. I'm not going to treat them like trash. I'll sit and listen. And it's not that I don't have my principles I won't stand on, but I'm interested in the conversation. That's something
So
you're not going to get from other candidates.
so as you went forth in the last year, your 12 months have taken you through 23 counties of Wyoming?
I've been all over the place. We've got team members all over the place now. Handing out this stuff in their communities. I mean, I got a phone call just yesterday, no, day before yesterday. Hey, Joseph, I'm up here in Lusk, and I saw your flyer in the diner. And I wanted to give you a call. I want to talk to you. Want to ask you some questions. He ended up saying, you know what, you're my guy. I want to get behind your campaign. How can I help? I'm having those kinds of conversations every day. The grassroots word has sort of become a naughty. It's like most things in politics, grassroots has lost its meaning, right? Like suddenly everybody's a grassroots campaigner, right? But for me, like ours is truly, it's about peoples and skills. It's less about the money. It's like, hey, Joseph, I got a nice radio voice. Want me to record some radio spots for you? Cool. Yeah, go ahead and do that. That'd be really cool. And so just using people and their giftings and what they're passionate about has been a really fun aspect of our campaign.
So will Joseph Kibler be on the printed ballots come August 18th primary?
As of right now, today, no, we're not planning on doing that.
You're going forth with a write-in
We yeah,
campaign.
so we left the echo chamber, right, of politics. And one of the things I'll say about that echo chamber is you got a lot of really great people as individuals, right? Like for instance, they will say something like this. There's way too many bills being published for the legislative session. We're supposed to be focused on the budget, right? They will say something like this. So they've got that principle. But then what do they do when they get on the committee or whatever, right? They push bill after bill after bill through the committee. So then yesterday you said there's way too many bills. Today you're pushing them all through and voting yes on everything. So this is a real challenge for, I'm going to say, politicians in 26. We need more Thomas Masseys, people who are going to stand up and just say no. Based on principle, the answer is no. It's not because I hate America. It's not because I'm not conservative. It's not but because we've said we're not spending any more money, I'm going to say no. Suddenly that person becomes a traitor based on principle. But who's standing on principle? You look at Washington and the bureaucracies that they passed while we were all distracted on Minnesota. So they got us all distracted with their political theater in going on in Minnesota, and they passed all of these massive minibus bills through Congress, and it funds everything that we said we were going to stop funding while we were all looking the other way. So we've got to have people who, and the way that you do that is you do what I've done. You step outside the echo chamber and go, guess what? You can't control me.
So
I'm the bastion of the
the
people.
Department of Government Efficiency,
Doge, yes,
Doge,
it died.
stripped so many, it's exposed so many billions of dollars spent here, spent there,
Yeah,
and much of it was shocking
yeah.
to Americans. But as you say, while eyes are on one story, one happening in the world, the omnibus bills.
The man behind the curtain. So with Doge, and people forget this. We're constantly on the headlines, right? Like we've already forgotten what last week's headline is. We're on this week's headline. Like we've already forgotten. Hopefully, we haven't forgotten about the Epstein files. Those things, the lack of transparency is astounding to me. Well, we won't get into the Epstein files, but think about this. People have forgotten who killed Doge last April. Who killed Doge? This Republican Congress at the behest of President Trump. The people sent Trump and elected this Congress to do Doge. They started getting too close to the truth. And while, yes, Doge is doing little teeny tiny things right here, like Congress has only passed one Doge cut.
Well, it came forward that following Elon Musk's departure, the budget put forth was higher than it had been
Yeah.
previously.
Yes. And these minibus bills that they just passed last week and the week before are funding everything in government at a higher level than ever, including the Department of Education. Wait, I thought we were going to get rid of the Department of Education.
Well, you bring up education, you bring up education, Joseph, and we're visiting with Joseph Kibler, Wyoming candidate for governor in 2026 here at the Talk Shop, Studio 255, live in the Laramie Plains Civic Center. And Laramie especially wants to know, where do you stand on cuts to the University of Wyoming?
Oh, absolutely. I want you to imagine for a moment, Eric, that you're my neighbor. And I got $1 billion sitting in a savings account. And I show up at your doorstep and I knock on your door. Hey, man, you know, I'd really like it. Wondering if you could help me pay my mortgage and my utility bills. And you go, well, Joseph, why are you knocking on my door asking me for money? You got $1 billion sitting in the bank account. No, but I want you. I want you to pay for my mortgage. I want you to help me out with my electric bill. Well, how would you feel about that?
I can tell you how I feel about it locally. I'm not in favor of it. I'm not in favor of it.
Of defunding it. But the scenario I presented to you as your neighbor, would you hand me over money for the mortgage?
When can you pay me back?
Well, I'm not going to.
Well, so you're not gonna get my help
Okay.
if we can't come to that.
Okay.
What are
So,
you doing for me?
right. Okay. So now let's go to University of Redlands. The guy almost. What am I saying? University of Wyoming. What am I saying? $1 billion in the endowment.
40 the
$1 billion.
For those in the audience that might not be aware, 40 to 60 million, depending on who you ask, is proposed for cuts. Now,
Yeah.
that largely comes from a group of leaders in elected office
Mhm.
who are party to what's identified as the Freedom Caucus.
Right. So, yeah, that's where it's coming from. You're totally right. $1 billion in the endowment fund right now is what they've got. Now, I understand these funds are supposed to be for certain things and stuff like that.
Contingency. We
But
need those in case things.
I hear you on that. I hear you on that. But let's talk about higher education. Let's talk about the facts. When we have institutionalized bureaucracy like we have with universities across this nation, we have to ask ourselves, why are taxpayers footing the bill? You wouldn't pay my mortgage with no return on as a neighbor. Why are we doing that in government? Why are we doing that in government? And let me ask you this question. So inflation since 1980 has been around 228% or so. Department of Education was formed in 1979, the year I was born, actually. Higher education cost, inflation is almost 5 times that. So the University of Wyoming, to go to school there, inflation in higher education is almost 1,200% as compared to the regular market, which is 228%. How did we get there? How did higher education outpace inflation by almost 5 times over that period of time? Institutionalized bureaucracy, taxpayer dollars. Why is it more expensive now? Because we have been dumping money, millions and millions of dollars into these institutions, and that can be a $10,000 hammer. It's this golden toilet syndrome. We've created an institutional bureaucracy that is out of reach for the people now unless taxpayers fund it. Now, the question is are we so far down that road that we can no longer turn back? That's a great question. At some point, taxpayers are tired of paying for everything. So, as a matter of principle, what would happen is in a free market, University of Wyoming would have to make adjustments to what it costs to go there to something that people can afford. If you take the taxpayers' dollars out, suddenly you're no longer going to be paying $10,000 for a hammer. Instead, you're going to go to Ace Hardware and you're going to buy a $22 hammer. This is government, okay? When you pull the taxpayer dollars out, the free market will decide what should tuition be, what should the overhead be, what should salaries be. Salaries at the University of Wyoming way higher than the free market. You go into the private sector where the real world operates. So there you go. I mean that's why I say, you know what? You got to pull that
So
taxpayer fund. And you know what? They've got
you framed the question in a multitude of ways. Many in the audience might ask, yes or no. Do you support the cuts?
absolutely. Yep. I support the cuts based on that
And
principle.
and based on that, you would say, yes, you support the
Yeah,
cuts.
based on the principle I shared. Yes, I
We're
support the
gonna
cuts.
we're gonna break for a moment. We'll be back with another 20-minute segment after this. This segment brought to you by the Benton Rusty, 308 South 2nd Street, and I-80 Towing and Automotive Services, 3830 Cherrywood Loop East in Laramie. We'll be back in a moment after this.
All right. Be back in a moment, you guys. I'm gonna just pause, turn this mute off for just a minute. Hey, everybody out there in social media land. We're going to be starting the next segment here shortly. We're going to be talking about Wyoming Business Council, a couple of other things. So please share this stream if you're watching. I hope you'll share it. Make your comments too. I'll get back to you after we get off this show. And we're going to be going on for the next hour or so, or 30 minutes left. What, right? 40 minutes left? Something
Yeah,
like that?
40.
Yeah, 30, 40 minutes. Yeah.
And the talk shop resumes in Studio 255 at the Laramie Plains Civic Center. Laramie, Wyoming. You've just heard Joseph Kibler, candidate for Wyoming governor in 2026, speak regarding the proposed 40 million to 60 million in cuts to the University of Wyoming budget. Now in Laramie, you're comfortable with your position that yes, you support these cuts, and restate exactly why.
It really is truly, it boils down to how have we gotten here? How has higher education gotten so expensive? Why is higher education inflated 5 times more than inflation in the marketplace? And it's literally because of government funding.
You talked about money in reserves. Talk
Yeah.
more about that. For those that might not be aware, what piggy bank are you talking
Yeah,
about
I'm talking
that's
about
available?
you know what's interesting too, not only about they've got almost $1 billion in their endowment fund right now.
At the University of Wyoming?
Yes, they do. But
Right.
they've also got, I want you to think about this. They've got alumni. They've got a lot of people, private investment into the university. That's how an institution should be run. And if it can't survive in the free marketplace with private investment and with tuition and with balancing a budget, then I would argue why taxpayers are exhausted. You know, we talked a little bit about political whiplash early in the show. Taxpayers are exhausted as they're finding out that they're footing the bill for everything. They're tired of it. They're tired of it. And so, by principle, we've got to stop doing that.
When it comes to budgets, we're fast approaching February 9th,
Yes.
the 2026 Wyoming legislative session. It's a budget session,
Yes.
4 weeks, 20 days,
Yeah.
and we're booking in fast with
Oh, yeah.
with Senate and House of Representatives matters to discuss.
Yes.
One additional topic is the Wyoming Business Council.
Yeah.
And Director Josh Durrell leads that organization. Monthly take home more than 20,000.
Yeah.
I've understood 288,000 annually.
Yeah. You're paying for that, by the way.
And the median income in Albany County, less than 40,000. I've heard 28.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, truth in numbers, follow the money.
Yeah.
What's that near $300,000 investment returning for the state of Wyoming and its residents?
Well, it's a whole lot more than that, too. The Wyoming Business Council has spent or used up $1 billion in its lifetime, maybe a little bit more. And when you're looking at those numbers, and recently it was pointed out that based on the number of jobs produced in Wyoming, that those jobs cost the taxpayers of Wyoming $1.2 million per job to produce those jobs. What we've done is the Wyoming Business Council was originally founded with the purpose of producing jobs in Wyoming. What we've done, it's going to tie in very well to what we talked about with UW, is we created another institutional bureaucratic, department that really doesn't have to be accountable to results. It can sure spend a lot of money, hundreds of millions of dollars being given to it to promote business development in Wyoming. Again, I will say clearly, I am completely for defunding the Wyoming Business Council.
One of the matters that comes from the audience is, how was the Wyoming Business Council founded? Why was it founded?
Its purpose was to develop business opportunities, economic opportunities in Wyoming with the core principle of creating jobs.
And I would only add to that the constitutional basis for this comes from the Wyoming Constitution does not allow money to be given directly to a business entity over another.
Yes.
Is that true?
But we pick winners and losers though through this
But
organization,
we've
right?
created an organization,
Yeah.
a nonprofit organization,
Yes.
which redistributes.
Redistributes, picks winners and losers. You know, this goes back to that question, is that big giant question about free market. The free market doesn't operate like this. If the Wyoming Business Council was a privately funded investment organization, what would they have to do?
Earn every penny.
Boy, they'd have to prove results. And those results would have to be good. They'd be accountable to their private investors, right? Because otherwise they wouldn't exist, right? But when we do these sorts of things through government, well, results. Oh, look, you created 100 jobs, last year or whatever, and you spent $50 million to do that. It doesn't.
So Joseph Kibler, you support Wyoming Business Council defunding. What state of Wyoming support would you give to set the climate positively for entrepreneurs to start small business or large
It's a great question.
corporations starting here in Wyoming?
Well, what's interesting? When you remove things like the Wyoming Business Council from the economic picture, it levels the playing field for economic development for everybody. So see, Eric, you're not getting $2.8 million from the Wyoming Business Council to start your business, while I am starting my business with the sweat off my back. You and I now have an equal opportunity to succeed. But because of organizations like the Wyoming Business Council, you get to hire the help you need. You're not putting the elbow grease in. You've been given the money through a grant. And you're ultimately less motivated to succeed because it's been given to you. So by leveling the playing field, and this could apply to agriculture in Wyoming, this could apply to the free market, small business place, this could apply, I would say, even to education, this could apply to everything. When you remove those dollars, the free market corrects and allows people to succeed or not succeed based on market demand and pricing and all of those things. But when you give one guy $1 million and the other guy starts from nothing, failure rates are a lot higher, actually, statistically, from the guy who got the free money. That's what you get. So how do you get it? Get more government out of the way. And that's how small business thrives in Wyoming. That's how economic development happens. You get bureaucracy out of the way.
So we're talking subsidization.
Oh yeah. Yes. We subsidize everything, by the way.
Are you in favor of tax incentives granted to incoming businesses that aren't available to existing businesses that might have been in the Laramie community for more than 20 years?
I'm not, because again, we talk about that playing field. Suddenly that organization has an advantage, a technical, a financial advantage over that company that's been here for 20 years. When you level the playing field, you stop these sweetheart deals. And by the way, this is something that really bugs me. I actually posted this the other day on my social media. It really bothers me that we give these tax incentives out, these sweetheart deals, these these boondoggles on the back of taxpayers, and we do this, and we don't actually ask for much, in return.
No guarantees.
Hey, no
really.
guarantees. Hey, Eric, I'm gonna give you this tax break. I'm gonna give you this sweetheart deal. I'm gonna let you tap into our water. I'm gonna let you tap into our power, and I'm gonna let you do all of this. I'm not really gonna ask you for much in return. Maybe there's gonna be some, future unrealized economic gain. I think this is really interesting. I get taxed on unrealized gain on my house. The government then turns around and gives those tax dollars to people on unrealized economic impact. We're going to give $30 million to the PRCA, right, to come here to Wyoming, taxpayer dollars, because it might bring economic growth to Wyoming. At some point, we have to decide, when are we going to level the playing field so that business and economic growth can thrive? Because as long as government's involved, we're going to constantly keep it. But it's a control thing. That's all it comes back down to.
How much would we need to increase the state's share derived from mineral royalties,
Mm.
mineral extraction, natural resource extraction in the state of Wyoming in order to remove property taxes?
That's a great question.
in-
What I would
for
rather, I
residents?
would rather not see increasing those royalties. What I would rather see is, let's support the industry growth. Because by supporting industry growth, we will increase those royalties naturally. And we can support industry growth to a point where that could replace property taxes. So rather than, by the way, that industry already pays a large majority of the taxes in this state. Rather than increasing that, how about we support industry growth? And we get there with industry growth instead. That wins on all the fronts. Industry growth equals economic growth equals more good jobs. I mean, that's how you get the thing done.
What's the state subsidy or federal subsidy or United subsidy for each wind turbine that we see?
I don't know the percentage per windmill, and that goes back to a principle. I think one of the core reasons that, and I know we call it woke wind, right, in Wyoming. That's the big term that we use, is based on my principles. Those would not succeed because of the subsidies. Because taxpayers are having to subsidize that so heavily. And by the way, we're subsidizing those, as I understand, even after they're up. We continue to subsidize that until the end of time. Those projects should not be allowed to proceed on the back of taxpayers. Period. And these things have been surviving on taxpayers for decades. And you know what? That's on the state level, that's on the federal level as well. A lot of that money comes from the feds to keep these things propped up. And again, one of my thoughts on that industry is, first of all, I like the idea of renewable energy. I don't know. Do you like the idea of renewable energy?
Has a good sound.
I like the idea of renewable energy, but why has that industry not progressed to more efficient, more effective invention?
Some would say self-sustaining.
Right. More self-sustaining invention. The reason why that industry has not been motivated to address its environmental problems, its impact to our view line problems, to all of these things, the reason the industry is not motivated is to get all the money they want. Why would you innovate? I would love to see renewable energy make sense. You don't see that industry innovating much because it doesn't have to.
We're facing, back in November, the Wyoming State Land Board discussed projects around Glen Rock, Wyoming. And there was a state land board. You monitored it. Recently in the last 2 months. And what did you find as you observed that group led by Governor Gordon, Treasurer Kurt Meyer, Secretary of State Chuck Gray, Racine and I think Degenfelder
Yeah, I think it falls
are
for
the
that.
five.
Yeah, yeah.
And what was your observation as a candidate for governor watching that board?
Yeah, I would say a couple of things. So one, I think that our elected officials have begun to realize the people are tired of not being listened to and not having the opportunity to speak. That special meeting was called.
That was a December meeting that you monitored.
Yes, yeah, and that
Go
special.
back to November.
Right,
You talk about not listening to the people.
right.
I was witness probably I believe I was the only media present. And I witnessed an attempt of more than 40 citizens in attendance
Yeah,
from all over Wyoming. Some had driven 8 hours to get there one way,
yeah,
and not one public comment was received before 2 minutes, 51 seconds into the meeting. They went to executive session to discuss legal matters,
yeah,
and returning roughly 40 or 50 minutes later, an immediate motion is made to go to adjournment,
yes,
and it's seconded, and irrespective of objection and crowd reaction, the meeting was adjourned, and an
yeah,
announcement was made that Attorney General Keith Couts would return inside 30 minutes to issue an official statement,
right.
and this meeting was adjourned. Governor stands, makes limited comment, and exits out the back door
Right.
without mixing whatsoever with 40 plus citizens who came
Yeah,
to that meeting.
that is why the special meeting was called, and it was located more central in the state.
That was in Douglas, right?
Yes, yes, it was in Douglas.
Right.
It was for the opportunity to give folks a chance to speak. I think that we have gotten in the habit, and this is where I can say I appreciate, Chuck Gray and his stand for allowing the people to have a conversation and a voice with their elected officials. I think that that is something we're missing. In fact, I think in many cases across the state right now, these city councils and these county commissions are getting tired of people showing up and taking hours and hours and hours of testimony because people are fed up. They're taking work off on a Tuesday afternoon to show up at these meetings and
Which
say,
takes
you
an
know what?
investment. That takes
It
a
does. And
citizen's
it's
investment.
hard, and in my running for office, and I'm not retired. I'm not, you know, independently wealthy or backed. I wake up every day, I go to work, I provide for my family. It's hard for the people to show up at all this stuff, but we're having a hard time keeping up with our government, and people are really starting to show up. I saw an interesting thing, and I don't know what's going on right now, but I had read, especially after last year and people showing up at so many meetings, that they're working on potentially even changing the rules to what the people can do in protest and how they can do that, making it even more difficult for people to do that. Because, well, I guess we've forgotten that we're supposed to be beholden to the people that elect us.
Supposedly serve the
Yeah,
people.
yeah. But I mean, you look at, the example, the recent administrative warrants going on in the city of Cheyenne. The people are staunchly opposed to this, and yet they just tabled it. Oh, it's for another day. And you know what?
Wait till stuff quiets down.
Yeah,
Is that what you
yeah. Oh, yeah.
anticipate?
That's the absolute tactic. They did this.
What would you say to somebody who say, Mr. Kibler, you're overreacting?
The will of the people is so ignored, not just in this state, in this nation, because we're beholden to ideology and political leanings over principles. Here's how I would govern, Eric. let's say I have the best idea since sliced bread for Wyoming. This is just like the best idea. And I put it out there to Wyoming. And I say, guys, this is the best idea. Let's get this through legislation. Let's get this done. But the people say, Joseph, we don't really want that. That's not what we want. We don't like your idea. You know what I should do? I say, you know what? Okay, it's done. People don't want it. We're closing that book, putting it on the shelf, and we're moving on. That's what government's response should be. Government does not have the end all be all. And you know what? The people get to also enjoy the benefit or the consequences of that decision. The people say they don't want something, government should say, okay, we're not going to do it. That should be the response of government. We get the opposite. People show up and say, we don't want it, we don't want it, we don't want it. And then government passes it anyways. That's got to stop. And the way that stops is what I'm doing right now. No party politics. It's just about serving and representing the people. I can't be bought. I can't be controlled.
So when you consider energy in the state of Wyoming, you've talked about renewables.
Yeah.
According to attendees at the November and December state land board meetings, we're facing, Wyoming's permitted 4,000 windmills.
Yes. A lot
It's,
more.
and it's
potentially
referred to by at least one giving testimony as the wall from Colorado to South Dakota and Montana. It's the wind wall.
Yeah.
Is that what Wyoming tourism needs?
No. No, that's not even, it's
Is
not
that what energy demands?
no, it doesn't. And one might say, well, Joseph, we need energy, right? I mean, shoot, we're building, we're going to end up building, sounds like probably 30 plus data centers south of Cheyenne. Where's all that power? We better tap into every method of power that we can get. All right. I don't know if you guys have looked at your winter utility bills, but they're high. They're very, very high, and they're going to continue to go higher with this. Natural gas, actually, the price is going up big time right now because now a lot of these data centers are going to start using natural gas for power generation. We need the power. We in this state produce a lot more power than we use, which is probably part of the attraction of all these data centers. But again, let's advance. You know what I want to see when it comes to renewables? I'd like to see renewables advance to the point where it actually makes sense. That'd be cool. That'd be cool. We got a lot of wind here. Let's find a way. Let's find a way to generate power with wind where we're not destroying the environment and the view lines and stuff like that. Let's advance technology. Let's do that. But these big giant windmills, not the way. It's not environmentally conscious. It makes no cost sense whatsoever. It never replaces itself. Our blades are still, we're filling our coal mines with the blades, right? We passed that bill, I think, last legislative session. So when these blades are done, we're just going to dump them in coal mines. They're going to sit there for the next 1,000 years. It's just not a solution. As far as energy goes, let's look at expanding what Wyoming's good at. Let's look at expanding our natural gas and our coal-fired plants. Let's see what that looks like. Let's look at nuclear, but let's step back and go, hey, probably not a great idea to put a nuclear operation with the prevailing wind that's just going to blow straight through a town. Like, doesn't make any sense. I understand why the people in Bar None are like, what are you guys thinking? What are you guys thinking? So the wind blows this way and you want to build it right here next to town. Well, that makes a lot of sense. I think we can find ways to do some of this stuff and be reasonable. Listen to the people and what? The minute the people could support this stuff, but the problem is government doesn't want to work with the people. They just want to do what they want to do.
Some concern themselves over wildlife preservation.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And the statistic I've heard is 47% of eagle deaths
Windmills.
are a direct result of wind turbines.
So wind turbines create this vortex, right? A vortex that these birds can't
Navigate.
can't navigate. And so it's by the way, it's not just the birds of prey. I mean, it kills millions and millions and millions of our songbirds and stuff every year. And I know we're kind of like not worried about that because we have plenty of songbirds, and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean the environmental that's just really it's killing, our these birds are by the way protected, right? You know, in this nation, bald eagles, golden eagles, all of this, what have you, hawks, falcons, things like that. And yet leading cause of death is going to be our windmills, for them. So by the way, I don't consider myself an environmentalist, but I am a conservationist. I love the outdoors. I love nature. In fact, growing up, I used to lead hikes all the time, and I was called the nature boy. I have a great appreciation for creation that God's given to us, and we should be good stewards of that. And windmills are not being good stewards of that.
You, in the last year, have done an increasing number of polls and surveys.
Yeah.
I want to talk briefly about that before we break and go into our third and final segment, if you would.
One of the surveys I did was sort of comparing my priorities with the priorities of the Wyoming GOP, which came out of their last central committee meeting, which, by the way, they still haven't posted their resolutions on their website from 3 months ago, which is a mystery to me. Maybe, I mean, I haven't checked in the last week or two, but maybe they haven't posted those resolutions. And then part of me wonders why doesn't the Wyoming GOP want the public to know the resolutions that they passed? Which is kind of an interesting question. Why does it take 3 months?
Is
But anyway.
is there unity or division that's referenced
Yeah.
there?
So
Is there
anyway,
fragmentation,
yeah,
you
in that
believe?
survey that I did, my priorities are quite different than that of the Wyoming GOP. And I found through that survey that mine were probably more in line with what the people. Cost of living was like the number one thing that came out of my side of the survey. It was interesting because I don't think the Wyoming GOP was addressing the cost of living at all as their priorities. In fact, their priorities are very, very focused on this election stuff, which is something I don't know if we're going to have time to talk about that today. But what I found through those surveys, property taxes obviously high on the list, healthcare is high on the list, education's high on the list. Cost of living was by far the most surveyed answer on that particular survey. And I ran another survey, which was interesting because I don't know, you probably remember about 2 weeks ago, the governor's office and the legislature were trying to figure out what to do with those extra $250 million. And I was like, well, the answer to that's pretty easy. You find ways to give that back to the people. I mean, that's my answer to that. They wanted to either put it in a permanent trust or in a temporary trust so that they could spend it. I was like, how about we give it back to the people? What about that? What are the individual little needs that we have across the community? So I put a survey out for that. By the way, if you guys want to do that survey, just reach out to me or just send me a message and I'll give you a link to the surveys. But what if we what if we fixed the problem in Thermopolis with the Star Plunge? Let's just fix it. Let's bring all the stakeholders together and fix it. That poor community has been stuck in bureaucratic and legal web of nightmares for what, the better part of almost 2 years now? Let's just solve it. You can't figure out what to do with $250 million. Let's solve it for those folks that live in that town. They've lost their economy.
A central component to
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Thermopolis, Wyoming
yeah.
economy, the Star Plunge.
Let's just solve it.
Who doesn't have
Yeah.
memories of
Yeah.
the Star Plunge in Thermopolis?
So anyway, I know, right? We all have memories there. And so I got this feedback from all of these communities. I heard little things like, hey, Joseph, here in Hanna, Wyoming, we used to have a coal operation. We don't have that anymore. And so now the taxpayers are taking care of this park and we really can't afford to do it. Things like that Give it back to the people. Give it back to the people. But that's not
The state of Wyoming Constitution calls for education at the University of Wyoming to be as near to free as possible. How can you say that we're doing the Constitution justice if you have these surpluses that aren't applied to the education
back to the people.
or back to,
I mean,
in
just back to
this
the
case,
people.
in this case, it would be doing what we've written needs to be done and should be done by our Constitution.
Yeah.
Doing our Constitution justice. Your concept would fit that, wouldn't it?
It really would. You know what's funny? What I think is, it's not funny, it's almost kind of tragic in a way, is the response to this $250 million. You know what you didn't hear from a single elected official? Not a single one. How could we give it back to the people? No, none of them asked that question. And that was my question. Wait a minute, folks. How can we give this back to the people?
Right. Yeah.
To these little communities. The town of Hannah, I think, has like 700 people that live in it. How can we spruce up their park and take care of that for them?
Community chest,
I mean,
monopoly,
it's just
bank
instead,
error in your favor,
yeah. The last thought,
advance to go.
the last thought of government is, how could we give this back to the people? That's my first thought.
We don't seem overly compelled to get the electorate's direct opinion on matters either. And we'll go into that segment next on the
Okay.
Talk Shop.
All right.
We're with Joseph Kibler, candidate for Wyoming governor in 2026, today on the Talk Shop.
All right, gonna mute for a minute, guys, and I'll be back in just a minute after this little break. Hey, folks, so if you're watching, we'll be right back. We're taking a little break, but we're just going to continue this conversation, at least for a little while longer, huh?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So hope you guys will keep sharing, keep commenting. I will get back on your guys' comments after the show.
Why don't you check and see what some of them are? And
Yeah. Let's see. So let me see. I've got a few comments here. Let's see. People saying hi. Just well said. People giving comments. A lot of people are saying, can you give a shout out to my dog that ran away? Okay, yeah, shout out to your dog that ran away. Some folks just saying he's willing to talk to anybody. He holds his faith and he proves it. He shows it. I know there's some other comments, but I'm not seeing them here. One gal said, his word is what he basically lives by. Is another comment I saw earlier. I'm not seeing it right here in the thread. But yeah, guys, hope you're enjoying it. If you guys are watching and there is something that you want us to cover or you have a question, do post it in the comments wherever you're watching. I should be able to see those in my streaming app, and I can try to answer that if you guys want me to.
And we're back on the Talk Shop in Studio 255 at the Laramie Plains Civic Center. This is the Talk Shop, and we're with Joseph Kibler, Wyoming candidate for governor in 2026. And Joseph, you talked earlier about leaving the Republican Party.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to revisit, if you would, briefly for our audience that might be just joining us. How are you going to get elected if you're not a Republican or a Democratic ticket member?
I think one of the things that the political echo chamber has forgotten is that it's the people that elect. It's the people that pick. Did you know that we have 25,000 unaffiliated voters in this state? Did you know that we have about 200,000 voters that don't participate anymore because they're tired of this political whiplash? That's 225,000 voters, Eric. That if I can have a conversation with those voters and get them engaged, get them registered, We're going to change political culture. Actually, you know what? You were my first interview, Eric, last year. And one of the things you said is, you said to me, you said, Joseph, if you accomplish this, you could change political culture. Well, that's what we're aiming to do. That's what we're setting out to do. We're going to change political culture. We're going to make government not controlled by party anymore, but by the people, by a true citizen government. And by the way, that's not to say that we don't have those individuals in our current leadership in the legislature and things like that that do think like that. They think like that as an individual. But the echo chamber gets a hold of them. You know what? That's why Representative Daniel Singh left the Freedom Caucus. Did you see that article? And I met with him, by the way, the week after that article came out. And I was like, tell me why. He says, well, I want to be able to be independent in my thought and in my approach to government. I want to represent the people that elected me, not the caucus. By the way, he has no ill will with them. There's no bad blood there. But he decided, you know what? I'm going to serve the people. I'm going to serve the people that elected me. None of us are going to do that perfectly, by the way. But that is sort of shows you that there's a crack, right? There's a crack forming there where people are realizing, gosh, I want to represent the people, not the party.
We ended last segment approaching a topic of elected officials aren't entirely favorable to going to the electorate
Yeah,
to decide any controversial issue.
yeah. Well, we see that played out, especially in this state, in the issue of abortion. You know, since 2022, when Roe v. Wade went away and that issue came back to the states, we've been trying to find all of these legislative ways to deal with that issue. When we should have done immediately was brought the vote to the people. Obviously, as someone who believes that life begins at conception, I would hope that the people would vote to protect life. But that's a good example. That's a very, very, very hot button topic issue that should be brought to the people. I think leaders hesitate to bring issues to the people. I think we should bring more of these issues to the people.
December 3rd, 2024, the City of Laramie City Council voted 6-3 in regular session to adopt a surface water utility.
Yes.
They did so without having answer to City Attorney Bob Southard,
Hmm.
as requested by Councilor Shumway, speculated and interjected by Councilor Gabriel that it would go to a specific purpose tax. It would be a proper, quote unquote, proper way to move forward.
Hmm.
But the vote was 6-3 in favor of the utility being adopted. That was item 15. Item 16 was an immediate move to hire staff to run the program, which hadn't gone to the voter yet.
Yeah.
As required in
Wyoming
Wyoming
Constitution.
Statute
Yeah.
1610-105,
Yep.
Section E, where Section A says if you adopt a utility, a surface water utility, these are your guidelines.
Hmm.
Read it. Then read Wyoming Statute 15,
Right.
7101,
That's their justification,
etc.,
right?
which is clear about the right of local municipalities to create
a utility.
a utility.
Right.
July 1st comes, 2025. The city of Laramie receive utility bills, and property owners, many who hadn't paid attention, hadn't been involved, expect representatives elected to read their minds,
Mhm.
know their vote,
Yeah.
and they got it wrong because the uprising was substantial.
Yeah.
And during a Fifth Tuesday meeting in July, later in July, council took feedback and then proceeded August 5th to repeal or consider repealing the entirety. That failed in favor of a suspension, 120-day suspension, which was extended in December or approaching December, which would have been the 120-day mark.
Mhm.
They extended it to June 30th. Then an adjustment was made to extend it to July 1st of
Yeah.
2026. And January 21st of this year, the Select Water Committee in the Wyoming Legislative Group, senators, representatives, united, and 12 members of that group voted in a split to table a bill proposed by Senator Gary Crum of Albany County, as Senate District 10 representative, which his intent was to clarify
Yes.
the apparent discrepancy. And he was opposed by Ken Chestick of House District 13 in Albany County
Mhm.
on that committee, and the vote was 6-6. They were each joined by 5 of their colleagues, and testimony was taken, and hours of testimony. I was very impressed that so much time was dedicated to testimony. There was no 3-minute rule.
Mhm.
They were respectful of
Yeah.
people who came forward. I was disappointed that so few spoke about their observation of this, since so
Yeah.
many had
Yeah.
really strong appeal. But when you talk about running a campaign that you want to listen to the people,
Yeah.
how are approaching the 2026 legislative session, which is a budget session, 20 days is all we get. What say you with respect to taking matters in account from the people in this upcoming session? What are your
Yeah, so rumor has it that there's going to be about 300 or 400 bills coming to this budget session. Now, of course, during a budget session, they have to receive a 2/3 vote to be brought to the floor. But if I had it my way, in order to do a responsible budget and to do it right, I think you need all 20 days to do that. That's my belief. Yes, I understand that we have the Jack Committee. I understand we have the interim committees that do some of this work.
Joint Appropriations Committee?
Yeah,
Jack?
yeah. But
Acronym City, baby.
I know. I understand we have those things. But if we talk about fiscal conservatism, I think we should spend 20 days on the budget. We're going to spend a lot of it on bills. Now, to address the surface water issue, last I read, I believe Cheyenne is now billing for that surface water thing. And here's where I fall on that. First of all, according to the Wyoming Constitution, I would agree that issues like this are supposed to be brought to the voters. But this goes back to what you were talking about. We're not bringing it to the voters, we're just doing it. So then you might ask, well, then how do you stop it? Do the voters have the resources and the time and the energy to sue? To stop it? They just keep kicking the can down the road in Cheyenne? Should the governor's office step in? The attorney general's office step in and sue the city? Say, guys, you can't do this. You have to bring it to the people first. But see, we do an awful lot in this state, locally, and even at the state level, that where we maybe use the Constitution as optional. And instead of doing the hard work to perhaps look at changing the Constitution, right? We can do that. There's ways to do that. We just do it anyways, because who's going to stop us? Who's going to stop us?
January 21st was in Cheyenne, Wyoming at the Select Water Committee. I had an opportunity to watch division not get reconciled.
Right.
I saw postponement of an immediate interface matter.
Yeah.
that was opposed, suggestion was brought, opposition was stated, but no resolution was presented
Are
by
you
the opposition.
talking about the administrative warrants, right?
I'm talking about surface
Oh,
water,
okay.
the
Okay.
surface water topic
Yeah.
that presented. Now, what was disappointing as a citizen in that viewing was that there wasn't a solution it wasn't quote unquote the time nor the place, said one elected representative,
Mhm.
to suggest it. Yet it was a place to bring the possibility of resolution. It wasn't
Right.
it wasn't the time or place for the possibility of reconciling
The tactic
the
that
matter.
we see often on display in this postponement or not giving an answer is the idea, I believe, intended or not, is that we're just going to keep delaying it till the people are so tired of dealing with it, and then we'll just do what we want. And unfortunately, in the real world, I believe that tactic works well because people can only take so many afternoons off of work and keep track of so many, meetings and engagements with their government. And
The
so it's more
first
of like just
three,
kind of wearing the people out
the
on
first
the
three,
issues.
the first three to give testimony were Ashley I don't remember her last name, but she was the director for the Wyoming Association of Municipalities. She represented WAM.
Yeah.
She was followed by Mayor Patrick Collins of Cheyenne, and he was followed by Todd Feeser, Laramie's newly affirmed city manager. And each of them
Mhm.
spoke about surface water actions being justified as they were taken, and they gave examples of the real dire need, and
Right.
the need wasn't necessarily uh, disputed by anyone.
Sure.
So it was kind of like, we want you to pay attention to the need, not how we're getting all of
Right.
it. And the real
Right.
the real target seemed to be nonprofits paying via the state of Wyoming, paying for their share of these public services. Now,
Oh, yeah.
these were not
Yeah.
payments in lieu of taxes. These are direct bill to citizens
Oh, yeah.
and entities, property entities
Oh, yeah.
alike. Now, in Albany County,
Do you
Joseph,
remember what was the surface water fee going to be for UW? Do you remember
it
it?
was in the neighborhood of 48
I'm trying to remember.
48,000, 46.
Yeah, I was trying to remember. It was a whole bunch. But I mean, to your point. Right? That what would end up happening is taxpayers would pay for it, and then taxpayers would pay for it.
Yeah, it was a big chunk. And then what was said was, City of Laramie heard the people and put a cap on how much would be charged, which doesn't resolve
Yeah.
the serious question of, should they be legally.
Well,
And so I guess a court's gonna have to decide.
and
We're
that's
gonna
going to
further
cause.
postpone.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Joseph, citizens, as in my neighborhood, have their rights trampled on
Yeah.
by public hearing notices being issued in error for a date that doesn't even, for a third public hearing of a date that doesn't even exist in the calendar year 2025. And yet it probably would pass this zoning application from industrial to R3 multi-unit, multi-dense housing would probably pass through time anyway. Just wait the people out.
Yeah.
They'll disperse, they'll calm down, they'll forget about it, and we'll go ahead with what we wanted to do anyway.
Yeah. Well, and that the other thing too is what we don't realize is how much is all the legal rambling costing taxpayers too. So not only are you, probably violating the law. Now you're not willing to do it the right way, and now you guys are going to be stuck in court for a year. And what's that going to cost taxpayers? See,
Well, it's
we're
interesting.
footing the bill for every aspect of
It's
this.
interesting that you mention that. As I said, the three first speakers were one from Wham, one from the city of Laramie, and one from the city of Cheyenne. In the crowd, in the audience, for the city of Laramie, I observed, we had at least two other full-time employees,
Yeah.
Director Webb, Director Wade, and city manager Todd Fieser, three full-time employees.
Yeah.
They're now, if you just take their income individually, collectively, and you compare it to the average in the room of those citizens who spoke, unaffiliated with government,
Yeah.
I wonder what that comparison would be in terms of David and Goliath.
Oh, well, it truly is David and Goliath. And I think that's part of why people are fed up. I think that's also part of why you see this max exodus from the parties. And that's part of why you see a lot of these election bills coming up in this next session. This is nothing about election security and safety. It's about shoring up the power and the David and Goliath that you're talking about. It's about making it so that no matter what the people do, you can't get over the wall. You can't walk through the gate.
One mechanism that
can't get
provides a theoretical check on government is public review, the right to review
Yes.
records,
Yeah. Good luck with that.
material.
And a lot
right?
of times you got to pay for it.
And so public, some call it Freedom of Information Act.
Yeah.
Some offer it as the public records
Yeah.
statutes. Now, in state of Wyoming, you've got if you make a request October 8th, they have a lot of time.
I think it's
The government have a lot of
I
time.
think it recently was changed. I think it's 30 days, right? I think that's
Yeah,
that's
ultimately, a lot of stuff happens on the
I think
29th
that's
day.
I think that's the number that, if I recall, either it was recently changed to that, or they've got 30 days. And it's interesting, in some cases, the public citizen actually has to pay for those reports, especially, sometimes from local and things like this, they actually have to pay to get those
I think that the
that
delay
information.
lacks transparency. I think that the delay, personally, is a very costly public expense.
Well, I mean, it might be too that, they just don't have the staff to fill all the requests. I mean, you get 100 requests a day. It's pretty tough to fill all of those in a day or whatever. I mean, quite frankly, we're living in the digital age. I would just say, why is the information not all available publicly and digitally? If we're trying to be transparent, in government, why isn't it just all available publicly and digitally anyways?
Well, because my privacy rights as a citizen might be violated and my safety might be put in jeopardy is one contention.
Why would your safety be in jeopardy of public? Oh, you're talking about like personal records?
It could be personal records.
Well, if it's personal records, that's a different story, or a matter of the court. Although a lot of that stuff is, public knowledge. Matters of the court are typically public knowledge.
But it could be redacted, right? It could.
Oh, sure, it could be. Yeah, sure, it could be.
I think in terms of redaction, it might be something for the public to consider. Excuse me, why was this redacted?
Oh,
What
yeah.
was the purpose
Oh, yeah.
of that?
Yeah.
What was the motivation? But if you have to press beyond a public records request that's
Yeah.
denied, you've got to take that to court. What does that cost? What's the retainer of an attorney cost?
Oh, I mean, that's going to vary, right? I mean, I think this, even things like this, I think could go back to, are we really serving the people in this way? You can ask that question. Are we
How would you
really doing
improve
this?
How would you improve it?
Well, first of all,
If you do that transparency, everything's on the.
first of
everything's
all,
on the-
yeah, I mean, first of all, it's 2026, folks. I think a transparent government has everything online completely. Now, you mentioned, particular personal transactions, things like that. Obviously, you wouldn't want to do that, but everything government's doing should be online. I mean, you know how many closed door meetings happen, or how many, little secretive things go on that the public will never know about. That stuff should be it. You were hired to serve the public. It should all be out. It should all be out there. It should all be available to people. I had kind of an interesting experience at the last Wyoming GOP Central Committee meeting. They went into executive session to discuss private legal matters of the Wyoming GOP because there's lawsuits and things like this, and so they kicked us all out of that
Aren't
room.
the citizens the ultimate client?
I think so. But anyway, they kicked us all out of that room, and they put an armed guard at the door. No, I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding you. They had guys standing there with sidearms at the doors so that the Wyoming GOP could discuss their private matters, their private legal matters. And they made all the committee members sign an NDA. And you think about this, well, wait a minute. Every dollar you have comes from the public. Okay. But think about how often that must go on in government, right? These backdoor deals that we don't know about. We talk all the time about transparency, about accountability. Go look at the state's books online. I think what is it? Is it openwyoming.org, something like that? You can go on, you can look at the state's books. You look at some of these departments, half the transactions have no reason, no department, not what it was for, nothing. It's just a line item with money spent, or a line item with money coming in, and no information, none, but to the tone of millions of dollars. Just no accountability. And I mean, a lot of candidates are calling for this, but I mean, what are we actually doing about it? What are we actually getting it done? We're talking about it. We're not doing it. Now, we don't have the capacity to tackle it all at once. I mean, one idea I have for doging Wyoming is you just got to do zero-based budgeting and make everybody accountable. But you can't zero-based budget the entire state in a year. So what you do is you just start picking departments. You just start working on it. Start getting the hard work done. Do zero-based budgeting, department after department, and get it done. Why are you guys spending $10,000 on a hammer instead of $25? But we're all caught up in the political point making and the legislation and all that we're not doing the hard work that needs to get done. And we should for really on behalf of the people too. We should get the hard work done.
One topic that surfaced in the last year, at least, if not before that, was legislatures not receiving emails.
Yes. Yeah.
And therefore not being responsive to the people, not even acknowledging the people locally, state, federal. This isn't
Well,
unique
I
to
mean,
one entity.
I could tell you that I've emailed and texted my representative and not heard back. And that may be political, right? Because I'm running for governor. Maybe he doesn't like me and he doesn't respond to me. Okay, that's fine. I happen to know a couple of representatives that are really good at responding to their constituents.
Mhm.
But I do also, because I'm kind of from that technical generation, I guess you could say, I understand how spam filters work. And if you're sending, a form letter to, to all of our legislature and it's exactly the same, that's going to generally get caught in a spam filter. You're not going to get a response from that.
Well, should it? Should it get caught? Should it get caught by our elected representatives?
I'll
Is
tell you
it
what.
illegal for me to send a form letter?
No, absolutely not. But you got to understand, let's say your representative is getting 1,000 of these exact form letters. No human being can respond to all of those. It's just not even possible.
Well, you can acknowledge receipt with an autoresponder.
You
It's a
could do
simple-
that. And I
it's a
think
simple feature.
I think some legislators did implement like some autoresponders and stuff. But, in this technical age where I can literally email the entire legislature, copy and paste something, email the entire legislature, and, all 200, all of us in this state could do that. 400,000 people, voters or whatever, we all do that. It's impossible. These people don't have large support staffs or anything like that. They're just human beings. But when you write a personal email to, I believe all the personal emails, like if you write a personal email to your legislature that's not form letter, that's got its own title, that's not It's not going to get likely not going to get caught in a spam filter. You might be more likely to get a response. But I will tell you this, I talked to a lot of people last year that tried to get a hold of their legislators personally, text message, email, with a personal message, and they didn't hear back. And I don't know if that's just we're not responding to people.
What's the accountability beyond election after election to holding representatives?
I think they need to communicate, but I want to bring up a point that's just truth, and you can take this as it is. These folks that serve in our legislature, in my opinion, they're underpaid and they're overworked. These people work for peanuts. And I know that some might argue, well, it's a public service, blah, blah, blah. These people work for peanuts. I mean, whether they're not there for the money. Let's put it that way. Let's put it that way. I mean, these people, I always am kind of shocked, at what they get paid for the amount of work that they do. And I was talking to a legislator and I said, have you worked out what you get paid per hour if you actually like averaged it out? He said, oh yeah. Oh yeah. I make about $2.48 an hour for the work that I do for the state legislature. So
how does a
that,
elected representative in the state of Wyoming go in worth 1 million, come out worth 15 million?
well, you know what? I'm not aware of any, unfortunately, I'm personally not aware of any situations like that. Not to say that that doesn't happen. I know that happens at the federal government level, like at a crazy amount. I'm not aware of that happening. I mean, are you aware of a situation? I'm not aware
I'm
of a
not.
situation.
I just have
Um,
audience. I have audience.
uh,
I have audience here, uh, suggesting that this is a principled basis for their lack of trust
yeah,
in
yeah.
government.
I'm not aware of any particular situations like that going on in the legislature. Obviously, there's rules in place to prevent that from happening for all bodies of government. Not
They
to
go
say,
through audits.
not to, oh yeah, they do, and not to say that that doesn't happen. I will tell you that most of the ones that I know on a personal basis are, I mean, they're making $2.80 an hour, and then a lot of them are retired, or they have their pensions or whatever too, and things like that that affords them to be able to do that in public service. Um, I know some of them certainly they went in well off and they probably remain to be well off. I'm not jealous of that, and a lot of them have worked for that, and that's fine. Um, I'm not aware of any impropriety in that area. I am certainly aware of it at the federal level, but don't know much about that, at least not currently at our state level.
You talk about the income of representatives being low.
Very, very low.
I don't
Yeah.
necessarily disagree with that,
Yeah.
except for there are examples where local government paid more than our governor.
Oh yeah.
Local government
Oh.
positions paid more than
Uh,
our governor
uh,
of Wyoming.
oh, a large. I think the current governor's salary is around like $108,000 a year.
Okay.
I mean, any local leader, city leaders, mayors, managers, they make a lot of them make twice that. I mean, they're getting paid
You know,
way more.
the mayor of New York has 8.5 million population to serve.
Yes. Yeah.
Makes, according to Google search, less than 300,000
Yeah.
annually.
Yeah. 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 You've got people in this
We
city
have
making
we
that.
have 30,000
Yeah.
population
Your city manager makes
roughly in
almost that, right?
Laramie, and the former city manager made reportedly two hundred nineteen
Yeah.
thousand
Yeah.
annually,
Yeah.
and
Twice the
I think
governor's
we're in the
salary.
neighborhood of 194
Yeah.
annually for the incoming and current
Yeah.
city manager. Now,
Yeah.
both of those more than the governor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who has more responsibility?
Well, definitely the governor. Definitely the governor. I mean, I think I think if you look,
Or at least comparable, right?
yeah, I mean,
Even if it's
when
comparable,
it comes to pay, I think if you look at the capital when it comes to pay, I think people are underpaid for their jobs. if you were to ask me. And that's not because I'm running for governor. That's just because I'm a human being and I think those are hard jobs. The legislature, in my opinion, I know Wyoming might scream at the top of their lungs, like, why would we pay the legislature more? Go look at what the legislature gets paid, you guys, for the hours that they put in. I mean, it is a bit,
it's out of proportion for
it is.
local, state, and
It really is.
probably
And it really is an interesting topic, because that Wyomingites are like, oh my, I mean, it's hard enough like to get raises to teachers or raises to plow operators.
Well,
Things like
one of the
that.
things, Joseph Kibler, uh, it just seems blatantly obvious when you have economic differential like this.
Yeah.
Those margins can become great gaps in communication and
Communication,
understanding
communication and
between
community too.
between leadership and citizenry.
It does between leadership and community too. It really, really does. And it's not to say I'm not sitting here going, well, gee, every legislator should now be given a raise to $125,000 a year. But you've got to understand that these people work their tails off, and whether you agree with their policies or their policies or your politics, you elected them, and these people work their tails off. They really, really do. I've always kind of thought, and the other thing is too, is we wonder why don't we get more principled solutions, out of our capital, out of legislature? Look at the amount of time they have to get the job done.
In the last 5 years, I've noticed great difficulty in having candidates and elected officials alike, staff members of various positions in government, show up, respond
Yeah.
to the invitation.
Yeah.
Complimentary visits, mind you.
Yeah.
If you're running a fiscally conservative, budget strapped situation, would you not take to the airwaves and appeal to the masses? Radio is word of mouth on steroids.
I think that bureaucracy has gotten so big, and where we have finite resources and time with so many of our leaders, it's finite. The way that you actually solve that, what you're talking about, is you've got to reduce the monstrosity of bureaucracy that we've created. These people, I'm just going to be honest, because I could be objective about everything. These people work hard. They don't have time. They don't. If you ask me, they just don't have time. And it's because bureaucracy's gotten so big and so complicated and so convoluted. And then they got 20 days to try to make sense of it all.
Are term limits the solution?
You talking about federal government?
In general, are term limits the solution in local, state, federal positions? Is that
Oh,
part of the solution?
I am a huge proponent of term limits. But one thing I might say is you look at cohesiveness in government, and our House members have to get reelected every 2 years, right? How cohesive can we get? How can we get cohesive solutions when every 2 years you could be changing the guard? That's a little tough, I think, if I'm being honest. Term limits, absolutely in favor of that.
I heard one contention against term limits is, why would I leave my professional career to serve the public and not have it be something substantial enough that I could provide for my family?
Well, in this state,
through that.
you really, quite frankly, you could barely provide for a family at the state level. In the sense of like being a legislator or the governor. I mean, it's really is. I mean, public service was originally not designed to be something that was permanent. Sort of like just like the job at McDonald's is not designed to be a career.
Mhm.
It's not designed to be that way. I would argue that perhaps, even at the federal level, in some ways it is now, it's become that. Um, I think you've got a lot of complicated issues when it comes to getting principled solutions out at the Capitol. And part of that is the limitation of budget and time that these folks have to actually hammer out good solutions and get it done. I was talking to somebody last year and I was like, it's really almost like you've got to, because things have gotten so bureaucratic and so complicated, the only way you can actually get it done is to extend legislative session. I mean, make it longer, bigger, more. I mean, again, this would go against my principle of making more government, but it's hard to get anything done now. Yeah, what can you get done in 20 days with the size of bureaucracy? It's a tough nut to crack, I think, personally.
As you have visited with people around the state of Wyoming, what issues have been brought forth that we haven't even touched?
That's a
that-
great question.
That we would
One
like to
issue
make
that
sure we do.
one issue that has come of great surprise to me personally is overcriminalization. That was not an issue. I went into this going, oh, people everywhere I go, people are going to talk to me about overcriminalization, but it's come up. This idea that something is illegal, right? Whatever. Let's just use marijuana as an example. That's probably a good example to use, where you can have penalty for participating in that, even though there's, perhaps no victim, no impact, no nothing. You're doing it on the privacy of your own property or what have you, but there's consequences. So this idea of overcriminalization, and maybe that may not be the best example, but it's just sort of like you almost call it a victimless crime. Maybe that's a way to put it. A victimless crime, right? And so overcriminalization has been brought to me a lot.
Did that comment come out of Cheyenne where the warrants are being considered to enter homes?
Well, so the administrative warrants are really a slippery slope. But here's why: is they could look at your property and go, "Oh, it looks like there might be a safety violation," right? Looking over your fence, and they just go get a warrant and go.
And they
Right.
they enter your property inside your home?
Oh, everything. Oh, yeah, absolutely,
Full
absolutely.
access.
Because they think there might be a safety issue or what have you. And by the way, if you look at the actual data in Laramie County and such on actual safety issues that come up, I forget the number, but it's like 1/1000th of 1% of all reports are a safety issue. Like you literally almost don't have a problem.
So what's the
So-
drive for this?
You know what?
this happening? They said
If you follow the path, it's like boiling the frog, Eric. If you follow the path of this type of mentality and this type of overreach, it ultimately becomes I as government have absolute control over everything that you do and say and conduct business and everything. It's all about control. It's all about control and power.
Does that circle around to why there's resistance?
Absolutely, because they know what the answer already is. No. The answer is no. We don't want the surface water stuff. Figure out another way. They're afraid to take it to the electorate because they don't like being told no.
I heard one citizen say they're taxing us for having a roof over our head.
I want you to think about this. So I'm going to put my tinfoil hat here on for a second, okay? So imagine for a moment that tax dollars are paying for the cloud seeding, right? And by the way, they've proven it. I mean, we've been funding this in this state. They stopped the funding last $3 million a year for weather modification. Okay, so this is now we believe this is going on for decades. Now it's come out, right, that they've been doing weather modification has been conducted. So imagine for a moment, taxpayer dollars are paying for weather modification to create rain, and then you're gotta pay for the rain that falls as well. By the way, this is going on across the state where we're trying to come up with taxes and fees for everything. We say we're so conservative, but what we're doing is not conservative.
So your answer, Joseph Kibler, Wyoming governor candidate in 2026, reduce government, reduce the demand for
But we
revenue.
keep talking
So
about it and not doing it. And that is why the people are so frustrated. I mean, look at what the federal government is doing. We literally sent them there to tear the thing down, and all they're doing is building more, they're putting more bricks on it. I get why people are frustrated. So the question is now, can we elect anyone who can actually get it done? I think you have to elect a coalition to get it done. I'm looking for a Secretary of State to join me in what I'm doing. Someone who wants to run for Secretary of State to join me. Treasurer. I'm looking for people to run with me on this because you're gonna have to elect a coalition to go in there and say, we're not doing this anymore, guys. Well, one of my mottos is, and this can go to the legislature, if I get elected, mark my word, if you're not putting a solution on my desk that actually solves a problem for the people of Wyoming, don't put it on my desk. Don't put it on my desk. I don't want to see it. I don't want you wasting your time on it. I don't want to waste my time on it. I don't want to waste taxpayer dollars on it. If it's another band-aid for education, don't put it on my desk.
how do you feel about the federal elimination of the Department of Education?
Well, see, that's the thing. They didn't do it. They funded it. So I
Was
encourage
that a
you.
concession,
Um,
or was it a bait? And
in my mind, it's total bait and switch.
right.
They said they were going to do it, and then they funded it last week. By the way, funded at a record level, I might add. Funded higher than the Biden administration funded it.
That's not as widely publicized.
No, it's not. Nobody's looking. Nobody's looking. So you look at the Department of Education in relation to the cost of education. Said this earlier. 1979 Department of Education is formed. That is the moment the cost of education exceeded inflation. That is the moment in time that cost of education went this way and inflation was going this way. That's the moment in time. That's just a facts. Okay, you can draw your own conclusion. You're listening or watching. Go look at the facts. But yeah, they funded it. $80 billion. Department of Education. Highest amount of money dedicated to the Department of Education ever.
So you talked about one constituent topic that was brought forward. Any
Yeah.
others?
Election integrity is always a conversation. I did a show last week about that, how basically election fraud in Wyoming is non-existent, like that pigs would rather fly. And the data supports that, by the way. The data supports. We've had one actual election fraud case, if you average it out, per decade in Wyoming. Decade. For every 10 years, we've had one criminal election case. And that's not to say there isn't election fraud, but you're being told this so that they could pass all of this stuff that really has nothing to do with election safety and security, but has to do with party power. So that's come up. The election issues come up. Property taxes obviously comes up a whole bunch. And there are those that are running right now for governor. Their answer to property taxes is just slash and gash. And let's just see what happens. I would not be a governor who is like, let's pass this bill to see what's in it sort of mentality. Let's pass this bill and then just see what the fallout is. That's not how I would govern. So when it comes to property taxes, I want to see a multi-phase solution, which I talk about a lot, to get to that point where we have no property taxes. I agree it needs to go away. But not having the conversations that need to happen to make a plan to do it. And by the way, I think this idea that we're just going to get rid of property taxes and just move it over to sales taxes is just moving a problem around. Moving a problem around isn't solving a problem.
We have one inquiry. Where do you stand on healthcare? Rural healthcare is a major concern of this.
Yeah, and especially, of course, OB, like care for pregnancies and things like that. It's a huge concern in this state. What has happened to healthcare is the same thing that has happened to so many of these institutions, whether we're talking about the UW or we're talking about general education. Healthcare has become just another part of bureaucracy. It's lost its way, it's lost its meaning, it's lost its purpose. Why is it, if you can even find a place that will take cash, why is it that an x-ray, if you pay cash, is $125 cash? But then you bill that to your insurance and suddenly you've got an x-ray that's $1,500. Why is that? Administrative bureaucracy. We have so got in the way of affordable health care. And we could talk about, well, I mean, we know that Obamacare was designed to collapse the system so we would go towards socialized medicine. I mean, that was the goal of that. But now we're propping it up. By the way, Republicans are propping it up. We're propping it up. We're not fixing it. Again, this idea, we're not going to fix anything. We're not going to come up with a solution. We're just going to prop it up with more taxpayer dollars. When it comes to healthcare, the way that you reduce cost is the same thing I talked about when it comes to UW. You get bureaucratic dollars, you get taxpayer dollars out of the process. You let insurance companies fight for clients, right? You let the okay, right now you can't do it across state lines, stuff like that. Insurance companies fight, free market, you fight to get clients to buy into your insurance by driving costs down, because guess what? You can't afford it. If you can't afford it, the consumer's not going to buy it. But see, right now, government's buying it. Government's subsidizing it. So,
Would there be an advantage to, if you serve one state, you need to be available to serve all 50
well,
states?
so yeah, that's what I was talking about. So if you eliminate this idea that you have to, that you can't, there's not competition, right? When you don't have competition in free market, you have high cost. When you have competition in free market, what happens is the cost adjusts to what's affordable to the people. That would happen with healthcare. That would totally happen with healthcare. You can afford to buy that Tylenol or that medicine or whatever it is. Well, guess what? Right now that's being propped up. So while you're paying $10 for that, and I'm just going to use an example, this isn't exact, okay? So don't quote me on this. You pay $10 for that prescription, and then government pays the other 70. That doesn't drive the cost down. That increases the cost. Because guess what? Government might be willing to pay an extra 100. Why not? Or $120. But in the free market drives that cost down. So again, my answer to that is healthcare has become a bureaucratic administration. And you know what? I think, and that's not a dissuade to our healthcare professionals. They have been put in a broken system. I believe that most of our healthcare professionals want to help people get well. They want to help people thrive. They want people to be healthy, but been put into a system that doesn't keep people well. They've been put into a system where they have to follow these bureaucratic frameworks that don't promote wellness. An example of this might be, you go into the ER for, chest pain. Well, you get an x-ray first. X-ray doesn't show anything. So you get a CAT scan. CAT scan doesn't show anything. And then you get an MRI. Oh, the MRI shows what's wrong. But we just paid for 3 to get to the answer. Why don't we just go to the answer? That would lower healthcare costs. Is the MRI more expensive? Yeah. But you just paid for 3. You just paid for 3 tests to get to the answer. But we've created this bureaucracy of process. And I don't think healthcare professionals can do what they would like to do. Same thing with teachers. We've so over administrated teachers that we've taken the joy out of teaching. We've taken the purpose out of teaching. We teach to a test. We don't teach to skills. We don't teach to reading, writing, and arithmetic. We teach to a test. Memorize the answers so we can push you to the next grade. You know, so this is a common thread in every aspect, in my opinion.
Want to give you the opportunity to close
Yeah.
our conversation here this morning, letting people know final comments that you have, observations that you'd like to leave people with, but how to get a hold of you,
Yeah.
how to connect with you and your campaign information so that we can send voters to the polls informed.
If Wyoming voters want to get more of the same and just in different ways, we keep electing our officials the way we've been doing it, right? We just keep doing the same thing that we've been doing. If we're satisfied with that, with the status quo. If we truly want to see government behave differently, we've got to start electing people differently. We got to get past the R and the D. Okay. We've got to get past, we can't just go to the polls and go, oh, that's an R. I'm going to go ahead and vote for that person. We've got to change that culture. That's why, if we want different results, because guess what? If we just go to the polls this year and we just vote R, guess what we're going to have? It's not going to matter who we elect. We're just going to get more of the same in a different way. So we've got to do something different. If you've enjoyed listening to this today, maybe you found it refreshing or insightful, or you heard things you haven't heard before, or watching here online, go to Joseph, the number 4, WY.com. That's Joseph, the number 4, WY.com. My phone number's on there. You can email me, you can text me, you can call me. And guess what? I pick up my phone. I do. I really do. Don't call me right now because I'm in the middle of live streaming. So don't call me right now. But you can find any way, whether you want to get involved in the campaign or you just want to reach out, you want to email me, all through our website, Joseph, the number 4, WY.com. I should also mention, Eric, every morning I'm live with a topic that Wyoming cares about. Monday through Friday, going to start doing that next week at 7:30 a.m. And then that show is recorded and replayed in the evening. You got a question about, watch my show. You can find out what I stand for. So with that, thanks, Eric. I appreciate you having me on the Talk Shop.
And we appreciate your time
Yeah.
invested with the Talk Shop in Laramie, Wyoming, Studio 255. We're out with this Candidate Awareness Tour 2026 edition with Joseph Kibler for Wyoming Governor in 2026.